Now, not last but not least, I'm going to do a part of my program called The Moral Kid. Oh, I'm sorry, you're pointing? Oh, sir, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got a question? In, and I know my first trip there, youth walking in, hasn't had a shower in days. Heartbreaking. And we are very, very, very lucky they were able to make it through the storm. Thank you so much, Mr. Founder. Quan A. Founder from the YMCA Safe Place, the shelter. I'm honored that you could be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Quan A. Founder. I like how that sounds. I'm a senior youth worker at the YMCA Safe Place Services. While we do at times service some youth who may be homeless, we also service the kids who won't do the dishes, those who may feel like things are pressuring them and they feel like they need somebody to talk to. And at times we are a respite place for kids who are just in that position where they don't really know what to do. I think that one of the things that people don't look at when they look at ways to reduce violence, the word opportunity has been mentioned a lot today. And I'm lucky to have the opportunity to give some of these young people an opportunity to have people see them do something that's positive. There are a lot of times that they are measured by negative things and connotations that are applied to machismo and bravado and how many fights you've been in and how many schools you've been kicked out of, that at some level to them relates to some sort of status or a misrepresentation of respect. So when I was asked to get together a panel of youth to come up here and talk about some of these things, I said, to me, a light came on in my head and said, opportunity. Let me think of some kids who would take advantage of an opportunity to be able to speak. Some who have exhibited certain qualities that would make you want to sit and listen to them. Because we can sit and talk about what we want to do with violence, but if it's about meeting halfway, then we need to take the time to listen to what they have to say. So in the past couple of days, I gave them a few questions for them to think about. And we're going to try to kind of handle this as like a panel and give each of them an opportunity to kind of answer some of these questions and be open for any questions that you all may have. I'm going to put this mic over here and use this one. And please forgive me because I have a tendency to talk a lot. I was voted most talkative at Central High School in 1995. So, and I have a thing for podiums. I dig podiums too. So what I first want to do is give each of them a chance to just briefly introduce themselves to you all. Y'all can paper, rock, scissors, or somebody go first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Markia. I'm 19. I'm a 2011 graduate of Liberty High School. I recently just enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I leave in March, and I don't really have much to say, but some of you may know me, some of you may not. I was born and raised here. I'm from the Newburgh area, and that's about all I got to say.
My name is Raven Kincaid. I'm 17 years old. I'm from the Southside area by Iroquois High School. I don't have much to say, but what I have to say is going to be important and relevant to this little panel. So I hope you all like what we have to say and what I have to say, and I'll pass it on to the next person.
My name is Aubrey Anderson. I go to Jeffersontown High School, and I'm 16 years old. I grew up in the Weston area by Shawnee High School, and I just came to talk about violence.
Great, thank you all. And I do appreciate each of them for being here, for the caretakers that made it possible for them to be here, and for Mr. Pat for rounding up them and some of the other kids. Thank you. What I wanted to start out this conversation with these kids is asking them, what exactly is violence, and where does it happen and why? As I stand here, I can tell you that at some point in my youth, you could say that I was bullied. I'm a person that avoids confrontation even to this point in my life. And a lot of times if I was bullied, I might maybe stay in the house for a couple weeks just to avoid that confrontation. But then it got to the point to where I was being called a punk, and I didn't like it, and I had to do something different. So I don't know if you've ever heard anybody say this, but check this out. The people that bullied me, I ended up tutoring them. Their parents paid me to tutor them to make sure that they got the grades to continue in the athletic programs. The bullying stopped because if you made me too mad or said too much about me, I won't help you with math and you'll never play football. I got out of the house, I didn't have to worry about them anymore. So in my mind, I can still picture some of those guys. When I think about what violence is, their faces automatically pop in my head. But I'm a little bit older than them, and that was years ago. I'm sure that violence has a few different faces nowadays, and I'm going to give them a chance to answer that. So in whichever order you all choose, tell us, what is violence, where does it happen, and why?
In the dictionary, violence is described as a rough or injurious physical force, action, or treatment, and/or unjust, unwarranted exertion of force or power against rights or laws. Quite frankly, that's the dictionary term for violence. I personally believe violence is black people killing other black people due to lack of knowledge or ignorance of the world around them. And the reason I say that is because I've watched the crime gradually rise each year in the midst of failed gun buybacks and funeral home fashion shows, while the deceased has become immortalized through the use of fake Facebook emotion and airbrush Hanes t-shirts and lanyard tags with no immediate positive results. At the peak of my own disgust, it seems that the issue only gets worse now that more city venues and project housings are being reduced to nothing more than grass vacant lots. I could easily say that most of what is reported on the local news happens in one particular section of town, but as unemployment rises and government assistance shifts more towards a crutch for some and pain in the anus for others, it seems that violent crime is spreading throughout the city, with the most recent murder taking place in the St. Matthews area.
To me, violence is something that hurts and takes away the lives of innocent people. Violence is something that can only escalate when being undetected. Where does it happen? Violence does not have a location. Violence is something that happens everywhere, all over the world. Why does it happen? I think the reason violence happens is because people who are violent towards other people have nothing else better to do, and some people are raised by violence, so that's all they know.
Well, I think violence is any terrible act. Doesn't have to be terrible. Any little disrespectful, unmeaningful act of unkindness towards another person or any other living thing. Violence is everywhere around us in the world, places we don't think about, maybe even in our own lives, and we don't notice it in our families or with friends. And we don't think to ask about that. I believe it happens because insecurity, problems at home, problems at school, grades dropping. Maybe you don't have, you're not popular at school, you're getting made fun of, but it's very common everywhere, and we just need to figure out something to do to stop it.
Thank you, guys. Somebody please make sure I get a transcript of this so I can show them this years down the road. This is awesome. The next question kind of ties into our agency and where we work. Again, at the Safe Place, we do service about 600 kids a year who come in facing a myriad of issues. And one of the things that we measure ourselves by is if kids feel safe when they're with us. And so the next question that I pose to our panel is, where do you feel the most safe and why?
I strongly believe that the Highlands area is the safest place in town. I was introduced to this district at the age of 12, and from there I began to see that there was a lot of diversity and peace. The Highlands is home to the majority of the city's 24-hour venues, which serve as safe havens for those who are homeless and in search of a place to go. For many years, I have watched several homeless men and women enter the likes of a nearby Heine Brothers coffee establishment and are met with warm shelter and free commodities such as water and leftover food. So much of the Highlands is filled with bright, thriving, college-age human beings who serve as part of a generation of people who are careless of the woes of the world and ignorant to the existence of a social class and more alert of the needs of their neighbors. Another reason the Highlands proves to be a safe haven in my eyes is the large amount and variety of things to do. Most frequent comers and goers of the Highlands are busy minding their business, grabbing some food, walking their dog, or catching a jog before work. What the next person is wearing or doing seems to be highly unimportant among the mass groups of people that flock to the area just to have a good time. The Highlands is a place of enlightenment and peace. There's such a big mix in the cultural groups that existence of discrimination and social prejudice is almost unheard of. And for that, that's why I found my place to go when I have my own problems.
I feel the most safe when I'm around my loved ones and family that I'm comfortable with, because when I'm around them, I feel like I can talk to them and I can trust them and I have nothing to worry about. Worrying about being violent towards other people or people being violent towards me.
I'd have to say where I feel safe at is with family members, friends who I can trust, real friends, not acquaintances, and I feel safe at the Safe Place whenever I was there. I feel safe at school because I have people I know who I can be around and constantly have people to support me. I feel safe in these places because, family will talk to me about my problems. Friends can, if people are messing with me or something like that, they can back me up when I need to go confront my problems and in the right way, not acting with violence.
Thank you. I think that as we sit here and think about their answers and consider the fact that some of them mentioned places, some mentioned people, areas of town, certain agencies, I think it would be safe to say that safe is more of a feeling and an inner thing more than an outer thing. It's a level of comfort, a level of understanding, a level of acceptance. And this is where these kids and us as adults also at some level feel safe. The challenge for me, not only as a youth worker, but as a husband and a father, is to understand that at some level that my safety is not as important as the safety of those that I'm supposed to be looking out for. There are times that I won't tell my wife or kids that certain situations scare me. Just yesterday, driving home in the snow, my wife is like, "I'm so worried about you." "Honey, I'll be all right." I couldn't tell her how nervous I was about driving because I had to make sure that she was okay where she was at, which makes it easier for me to be okay where I'm at. And as I got in the car and said a prayer, and my son looked at me and stopped playing his game and kind of looked down in observance, I couldn't tell him how scared I was, but he saw me doing something that would at some level give me some sort of strength to be able to get through what it was I needed to do. And in so many ways, that's kind of what these kids do, is they look for places and they look for people who give them that support, who let them know that it's going to be okay. And they don't have to tell them all their problems. Just somebody that has a listening ear. And that's what they're telling us is what safety is all about. The next question is, because I always like to make sure that they focus on themselves first. The kids that come into our program, the only thing we can do is work with them while they're there. It's a short-term program, and at some point they're going back out to face the world, and we don't have enough room in our shelter for the whole world. So our job is to try to equip them to deal with the things that they're going to face regardless. So one of the ways that we do that is by focusing on them and what they can do in certain situations. So the next question ties in perfectly with that. What can youth do to try to reduce the level of violence?
What I think our youth can do to reduce the amount of violence is really minimal without the accompanying help of adults. Our youth is our future. They're useless if our adults are not consistent and present in their everyday lives. A lot of what we see or perceive as a city of trouble, violent youth is really a scapegoat for what the true problem is. That being the lack of positive role models, present mothers and fathers that are attentive and open-minded, and opportunity. The solution should not weigh so heavily upon our youth, but more heavily upon our elders who have the ball in their court right now.
What I feel like I could do as a youth and as a young adult, I could talk to and encourage my peers and friends to come together and come up with a plan to reduce the rate on crime.
This is a very good question because there are a lot of things we youth can do to stop this, but when we have an opportunity to do, a lot of them don't do it. One of the main things you can do, if you see one of your friends getting bullied, picked on, messed with, go up, kind of back them up, ask the other person to kind of leave them alone, kind of help them out, make them feel better, report the situation. And that isn't something a lot of people like to do. They call it snitching, which isn't a bad thing at points. You don't want the problem to escalate. Another thing you could do is, kind of talk to them after school or, hang out with them, make them feel better. Also, look out for violence on the streets, kind of stop that, which, there's not a lot of ways you can do that except ask them to stop. Report it to the police or anything like that. So, and that's all I have to say.
I think that one of the nice things is that, again, they all focused on what I can do or what we can do, and the understanding that they are also part of the solution to this issue. There are a lot of things, and as they talked about, there are a lot of things that stand in between people feeling like they can do something to address the issues and the concerns. On a personal note, I love talking about the ideology around snitching, and I tell people I'm a snitch automatically. Please don't do it in front of me. It's that simple. I was in a gas station a couple years ago, and I noticed a young man putting a candy bar in his pocket as I was walking up to the counter, and I looked at him and I said, hey man, you gonna pay for that? And he said, well, what if I just boom? And I didn't know what boom meant, so I kind of braced myself to get ready, but apparently boom means to just walk out the door without paying for the candy bar. And so I told my friend that was in the car waiting on me, and he's like, man, why are you snitching? And I said, well, for 3 reasons. Number one, if they pick him up for stealing a candy bar and they charge him, then that's somebody already being introduced into the system at an earlier rate, which doesn't help anybody. Number two, as people steal, prices go up. So eventually, me and you, for that matter, are going to be paying for that candy bar. But most importantly, I have a son. And I don't want people thinking when they see me walk into a store and he's right there with me, that either he is going to steal or that I have conditioned and taught him that stealing is okay. So I snitch in order to preserve the future. And I tell kids all the time when they say, well, they say not to snitch and all this. Telling somebody not to snitch is as opposite of gangster as it can be. If we look at the older gang movies, if they shot you, they set the gun down and lit a cigarette and waited for the police to show up. And when they did, they put their hands out and accepted whatever punishment came with that. A lot of times nowadays with the violence we face, nobody wants to accept the consequences, be it the perpetrator of the violence, and a lot of times those who end up caught in the crossfire, that's definitely not the destination that they planned for either. So again, that's my personal note, but no, I'm a snitch. Please don't do it around me. I can't call my wife and say, I'm not coming home because I didn't want to tell. That's not going to go over too good. So again, off my soapbox and to our last question. And again, these are kids speaking, so please listen to this question. What can adults do to reduce the level of violence?
What I feel like our elders should do is not hard. It's actually quite simple because these same elements of enlightenment and advancement have been around for several years and play a major role in the success of those we see before us today, such as the Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey's, Jay-Z's, Kanye's, Tyra Banks. We need to bring back the old institution of child development where our communities closely resemble the villages of the motherland and less of an Americanized neighborhood jungle where anything goes. It's time we go back to the days of neighborhood cookouts and celebrations of culture and empowerment. It's time we take education more seriously and rather than unrealistic lifestyles. It's time that these parents be parents and not best friends and enablers. Children need guides to success and not gateways to bad decisions and career paths. It's time these teenage parents be made to face the horrors of their decisions and raise their children. It's time we stop letting grandparents raise their grandchildren on government assistance. It's time we stop using mental illness as a crutch and convenient source of income. I think there could be more public facilities instituted within our community to promote the arts as well as education and healthy living in a way that our youth will be able to see the amount of opportunity this life offers, as well as exposing our youth to the many available places to see on earth. I personally believe from my own experience as a teen growing up here in the city of Louisville that more listening and action needs to take place within the lives of our teens. We need to pass on more encouragement. There needs to be an equal amount of praise given to every teen, not just some. Coming up, I've seen a lot of teens fall to the wayside and the edges of nowhere because there wasn't enough appreciation going around. Regardless of what talent a child has, whether or not they have in-school athletic involvement or what high school they attend, they should know that they're special and unique, and it's important that they know every day.
Something I also think adults could do is enforce the rules and laws more than usual. And more adults should be in their young adults' lives and their children's lives other than being somewhere doing something they shouldn't be doing.
I believe adults can do many things for the situation to stop violence. A lot of it would have to go back to when you start raising your children. I live in a household where I have these little kids watching these rated R movies, and watching these movies makes them believe that this is okay and this is stuff that is going to happen in their lives and they can do it. What else they could do is like a neighborhood watch. I don't know if they have that anymore, but they had in the Florida where I used to live. Start a neighborhood watch to help stop violence around the neighborhood. Let everybody know that let all these people know who are doing bad things that there's an eye on them and they're being watched. What adults could also do to help this situation is kind of talk to the children when they see bad things happening, such as pushing the little kid aside, cutting somebody in line at school, many other things. But it all comes down to what the adults do to raise their children and what they do when they see other children do bad things to help prevent this violence.
And I think as I wrap up, just in following up with the introspect that I asked them to have with myself as an adult and certain things that I can do to try to reduce violence, we need to be mindful of as we allow our kids to be kids, at sometimes there's a handoff approach, as somebody said, and they're at this point and they can do on their own, but just because they have keys to a car doesn't mean that they know how to read a map. Just because they're at that point doesn't mean that they know or can go where it is that they're trying to go. So at some level, there's still some sort of guidance that is needed. There are a lot of times that we end up with musicians and artists being role models as opposed to parents, creating unnecessary and almost unattainable lifestyles and glorifying those through the media. We can't keep our kids all the time from witnessing those types of things, from playing those video games, from watching those types of movies. But if we're not there to explain to them how different from real life those situations are, then we're not doing them any good. I tell my son all the time, cool changes all the time. Don't spend your life chasing cool. It changes. Be your own cool. And a lot of times when we're not there to say that and we push them toward whatever the latest fashion is, a lot of times those fashions are driven, and that market and that whole economic machine is driven by this violence that we're here trying to address. We push them towards that. We tell them you can be like that guy who raps about beating women and killing people and selling drugs. But then we want to tell them to do something different. We sit at the table and tell our kids how we're struggling with bills, but get surprised when they start selling drugs, saying that they got to help us out. When kids get more respect for how much time they spend in jail than what they got on their SATs. We have a problem with that. And that's why we're sitting here, because at some level, we see the problem. We want to be the ones that address it. As much as we might be part of the problem, the bigger part of the problem is the ones that aren't sitting here. When I looked at the flyer, it said 100 people, and I know the weather might stop people from doing stuff, but there's other stuff that I know they doing the weather ain't stopping them from. If they really wanted to be here, they would find a way. They do to do everything else, don't they? Hey, you said sometimes you got to cancel stuff. I know. Not enough people do. And that's why we're sitting here talking about it. So as an adults, we need to take the responsibility, understanding that it's not up to them to be that responsible yet. How do you give them that much power and authority and then get mad because they abuse it? But it's not from abuse, it's because they don't know. Nobody taught them, here, give them the keys, but get mad when they wreck? Or just say it'll be okay? That's not real life either. We need to make sure that we're addressing ourselves so that we're in a better position to be able to address these kids and help them with violence. You know, we can talk about saving the world, but I mean, they're it. When we're gone, it's going to be them. Are we leaving them? Are we being capable hands or leaving them in positions to be able to continue to carry this? And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves that should govern how we interact with these kids, how we deal with them. And I'm not just talking about my own kids. I'm talking about any kids that we interact with. So, I'm sorry, that's enough.
You're sorry? I love it. Did you say 600 kids?
About 600 kids a year, yes.
Individual kids or the kid? Individual kids, wow. You brought up what I call violence is a dirty little secret. Snitching. When I do my presentation, they go nuts. Oh, you can't snitch. Stitches get stitches. But 50% of all violence is not reported. 50% of all violence, only 50% of homicides are solved because nobody's snitching. Violence is a repeat offender trade. It's just a few doing it over and over and over and over again. Unless snitching is part of the solution, we're not going to get to the solution, because it's just a matter. Don't do it to save the other person. Do it to save yourself, because it's just going to be a matter of time before they get to you. So snitching is the dirty little secret, and I couldn't agree more. I want to promote snitching. Yes, please. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Come up here. Come on up. I'm 55, man. I can't hear. Go right ahead.
First of all, we got that snitching thing twisted. I'm not a snitch. You're not a snitch. He's not a snitch. The police put informants, people who's involved in crime, they put them in to tell on their own people. Now, if we're not involved in it and you don't call the police a snitch, he's not a snitch. So we need to turn it around. If you see something going wrong or whatever, you're not snitching. You fighting against, it's a war, and we against them. The snitches are the ones that's inside the organization that turn on that organization. I'm not in that organization. So right now, if you do something in front of me, I'm telling it. I am the police.
Right. You are absolutely correct.
It's not a snitch.
No. That's one of the things of Man Up that we've been teaching in our community and everything. And and that's why I was raising my hand up. We have to stop taking a word to snitch, which is the criminal. That's the criminal word, okay? It's a word that the community have embraced from the criminal mentality that have sold us in our community. It has paralyzed us in our community because snitch, if I'm a community, if I live on my street, okay, and I see an event that's going on that's not right to me, I am not snitching. I am reporting a crime that is not working in my community.
I agree.
That's not a snitch. Let me articulate it to you, because I have a very good articulation concerning snitch. Here's snitch, okay? Snitch means that the 2 or 3 or 4 or what that are involved in criminal activity, okay? 1 get caught, 2 get caught. They turn on the others that is participating to someone else, and their friends call them a snitch. Did you hear what I said? They're the one that they were participating with the criminal activity call them a snitch because
it's a derogatory term. It's an insult.
Yeah. Yes. You are reporting or telling on them for a lesser. Because you're trying to get a lesser thing from the event. Sean, I know you want to add to this, don't you? Okay.
Please.
It's very important
then I want to ask
that
these kids something before, because they got
it's
short
very important
attention
that we, the community, but it's very important that we, the community, this is why I say in the general, that's why I said earlier about the general public, okay, general American public, we have to understand what that word means, okay? We cannot let that word paralyze us. Does that make sense? The general American public, we need to understand that word, okay?
So the only thing I want to add real quick is that word comes up a lot. And I was at Job Corps a couple of years ago, and I did a workshop. And I think I'm just adding on to what everybody said. We have to change the terminology, but we also have to do it in such a way that our young people understand. So we know if we all rob a bank, and you 2 get away and I get caught and I tell on you, that's snitching. Our young people have been taught to believe that if you allow criminal activity to go on, then that's snitching. But really, that's just accepting the criminal culture. And you're better than that. And I always say to young people, you know what if it was somebody in your family that got shot? How would you relate to that? And that's a whole other workshop.
Right.
But anyway, I just want to
Sean, thank you for saying it, because that's
Ramsey,
exactly right.
You guys are going to have to come up, and then I'm going to ask these kids some questions. I tell you, snitching does it every time.
Snitching does do it every time. I'm going to say that there's 3 things. There's snitching, which is the criminal. Telling, which is a strategy. Report the crime. If you're in school, somebody comes into the school's got an M16, and the police and the security officer's right there. What you going to do? You see the guy first. What you going to do? You're going to tell. Exactly. The third thing is getting help, because oftentimes when people are going through something, especially young people, if it's something that's going on between them and another person, they feel like if they go to somebody and ask their opinion or ask them to give them thoughts on it or even say anything about it, that it's snitching. And it's absolutely not true. It's all about what the outcome you want. If you're snitching, that means you're involved. If you're telling, that means that it is not your job to handle. It is somebody else's job to handle. And if you are getting help, you are handling it, but you just don't know what to do. It gets tied up very easily. I'm sorry. Okay.
That was great. What was it? Snitching, telling. What was the third one? Getting help. I love that. Can I steal that? Thank you. I'm going to put it a little bit lighter because I have some questions for the kids. They don't bite, do they? No, okay. Just kidding. What about snitching?
Snitching? Are you asking us about it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to get there, but would you snitch if you saw something?
Well, me personally, just here in Labor Day, I think it was Labor Day this year, I was walking down Dixie Highway, and I had gotten into an altercation on 18th Street. But
You mean an altercation?
Just an altercation with a
fight?
Yeah, pretty much. But it
You
wasn't.
just walking down the street
yeah.
and you got in a fight?
No, it happened on 18th. I was just already
Oh, I
there.
see. I got
but
you. Okay. Sorry.
I was walking away from the situation because I knew more people were coming. It was going to get more than what it needed to be. So I'm coming down Dixie Highway, and a car is like kind of crept up on me and stopped, and then rolled the window down, and they looked at me, and then he kind of drove off. Well, there was a group of guys in front of me, and we were all walking down Dixie Highway, and I was behind the group of guys. I was kind of walking by myself, but I heard like a pop, 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 and the car did a U-turn back down Dixie Highway going the other direction, coming more closely towards 18th Street again. And I immediately ran across the street. Well, you know, the rest of the guys kind of just ran up to the Krispy Kreme and the Speedway and all that in that area, but I ran up the street to these people's house because the car went past their house as they were shooting, and they were all on the porch. So I first tried to see if everybody was okay, but I had asked them to call the police because you know what I'm saying? So
You
I
snitched.
didn't.
I mean, you told.
Yeah, I mean,
You got help.
I told, but I was getting help.
on it.
I was getting help because I didn't know if they were coming back. I didn't
Right.
want to stay out on the street if they did come back. So
No. I want to get to the kids. Let's get the kids. Get to the kids. Snitching. Do you snitch?
To me, if I have nothing to do with the
Okay, all right. Hold on. Do you tell if you see something wrong?
To me, if you're using the word snitch, well, I wouldn't have anything to do with the crime, so I would not be snitching.
Okay.
But if I have nothing to do with what happened, I'm not going to say anything, because if I say something, then they might try to turn it around on me or say, no, she was involved. So I just leave it alone and let whatever happens happen. Yeah. So if I don't say nothing, I don't tell, snitch, whatever y'all want to call it, then I won't have nothing to worry about.
Right. I think I'm going to get off the subject. I'm going to switch it around, get a positive point. I'm going to end it on this, because this is I'm an anti-violence advocate, I'm a youth advocate, but what I really am is a peace activist. And tell me if I'm wrong. I see the world as mostly peaceful. I see most kids as peaceful. I see adults mostly peaceful. I see peace everywhere. I know one act of violence and bullying could destroy a life forever. But I want you to think for a second, how much peace is in your lives right now? When you wake up till you go to bed, is violence 20% of your life? You don't have to quantitate it like that. But how much peace in your life? What I mean peace is no violence or the threat of violence.
I say about 5%. Since the age of 3, I've been going to nothing but funerals and wakes, getting people that I love on my T-shirts, going to see people at prisons, burying people. Just in 2012, I had a friend, Rico Robinson, be murdered on the 23 bus, so 5%.
Me, I would have to say 5%, because I could
Only
say I have
5% of your life is peaceful. 95% has violence.
5% is about violence, because
Oh wait, 5% is violence? Is that what you were saying? Were you saying 5% was? 5% was peaceful.
5% is violence for me. Everything else was peaceful, because I can say I don't have that many. I can't say I have that many T-shirts where I have RIP on them, or I've seen a lot of people get shot, because I haven't. Like I could go to school every day or hear about it on the news that something's happened or somebody's got killed, but I haven't really had that many people die in my family or been around violence.
That's good to hear.
Much.
Even 5% is too much, of course. Go ahead. How much peace is in your life? You wake up, you go to school, you go shopping, you go to whatever?
I'd have to say it's about 20% peaceful, or 20% of violence in my life.
20%.
Of violence in my life.
Evenly spread throughout the day, or is it
Spread-
school?
It has to be mostly
After school?
in school, after school, or even on the occasion that there's something that happens on the street that pops up, based on the area where I live and the people that I know and the people that I deal with every day.
Gotcha. Can I give him one last question? Subject, you talked about media. Just a simple question. Videos, music, movies, video games. Is that real life?
No, not at all.
It's not real life, is it?
I would say, I think some video games come about from real life because things happen and then they make video games about it. There's a game called Grand Theft Auto. If things would have never happened that they put in Grand Theft Auto, they would have never came up with the idea to
But
put
they're
that in the game.
replicating real life.
Right. So I would say some video games
Okay.
come from stuff happening in real life.
Of course. That was all my questions. Want to make any final statements?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, guys.